Well, a good Tuesday morning to you, Central Georgia. Doing another live stream here on 13 WMAZ Plus to break down an in-depth forecast for tonight's overnight into early morning storm potential. So we'll go over all the details. We have received some new updates as of this morning compared to when we were doing this yesterday morning. So we'll have you covered on all that, and also taking to the comments. I made a post in the Weather Network on my personal Facebook page. You guys can go there if you do have a question about your specific area or any of your questions or concerns associated with this overnight storm potential. So I'll take a look at that after I break down everything as of the latest data. So once again, these are kind of serving as a refresher and giving you all that information that you do need ahead of the severe weather potential later on going into the overnight hours. And I will preface, Ben Jones will be doing another one of these later on this evening, and then I will be coming in early depending on the exact timing of this system. Obviously going to be here to keep you updated all throughout the early morning hours, including those overnight hours. And I will be here for my normal shift, and obviously Ben, it may carry over a little bit into his nighttime shift. So let's go ahead and break down everything that you need to know. I'm going to turn the volume down on my IFB, that little device in my ear right there. It's quite deafening, but 13 WMAZ weather impact alert. That is what we have issued as of yesterday morning. I believe we did go ahead and issue this by the 10 a.m. live stream that we did have yesterday. So what is that weather impact? The main impact we are really looking at is gusty and damaging winds, and that's going to be associated with your pockets of stronger storms, those severe thunderstorms, and the general timing window I have outlined as of right now is 12 to 9 a.m. So that's going to be obviously all day Wednesday, but really once you get to about the midnight hour, turning the calendar to Wednesday, it essentially is still those overnight hours in Tuesday. But nonetheless, about a 9-hour window that we're really looking at, and we'll probably trim this into a more specific window as we continue about this evening and into the actual event. So right now, over the Georgia National Fairgrounds, you'll see a couple of clouds out there. Patchy cloud cover has been the story all morning long, but I want you to take a close look at these clouds. So they're moving from right to left, not really at a substantial speed just yet. However, as we get into the afternoon, that will be a different story. But these clouds moving from right to left is indicating that they're moving from south to north. So this is facing eastbound at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. This is the west gate. So looking over the clock tower, we're starting to see those winds infiltrate from the south, and that's going to play a role in our forecast for the rest of today, along with going into the evening hours and overnight. So today, a windy day is on tap and a chance of a sprinkle. Partly cloudy skies like we see right now, but the winds out of the south, 5 to 15 regular kind of sustained wind gusts. So that's what they'll be constantly and consistently. But the occasional gust can get up to 30 miles an hour. Already seeing winds build into the forecast throughout today. So obviously the main focus of this is going to be overnight into the early morning hours. Not to take away from the fact today will be a windy day, especially heading into this afternoon. So if I move out of the frame, you'll see a high temperature of 76, going to crawl above the 70-degree mark and above average today. So it's obviously going to be a warm day, setting the stage for warming that surface up ahead of this frontal boundary that will approach in the overnight hours. But also that southerly breeze is going to continue to push in some of that moisture associated with the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, everything south of us. And we'll go over that on the future view humidity map as well. So right now, there may be a little bit of a breeze, maybe an occasional gust down in our far southern corridor up to 20 miles an hour. They continue to build in as we go just past the midday hour. This is 2 p.m. later on this afternoon, and then you'll really see them continue as you're making your final preparations to head home from work, head home from school, and then as we continue about the evening hours, the winds only increase. So this is 2 a.m. right here. Our frontal boundary, you can definitely see where this frontal boundary is depicted because these winds coming in from the south are going to be what we're dealing with this afternoon, but then they're going to start to shift. We have a brief lull, if you will, in these gusty winds, but this boundary right here where you're seeing this sharp white line go all the way up into the northern portion of the state, that's going to be our front moving through. So obviously you see gusts maybe up to 40 miles an hour coming out from the south. However, within this frontal boundary that we do have with some of these stronger thunderstorms, these severe thunderstorms, we could even be looking at local gusts up to about 60, even higher than 60 miles an hour associated with those stronger storms. So that's something, and that's probably the main impact that we are really looking at because you see this definitive line right here on the wind map. So obviously those straight line winds, even though not necessarily spinning around and getting rotation, they still can pose impacts in terms of blowing loose items around that you do have outdoors and damaging not too well built structures. So obviously blowing down trees, maybe knocking down power lines and such. That could be some of the potential impacts that we're looking at with these very gusty and strong straight line winds. So you'll see that we continue with this pink shaded area. That's going to be your gusts closer to 40 miles an hour, still coming out of the south as we go to about 5 a.m. And then finally we start to clear out in terms of the actual rain. However, the gusty winds are still going to be a factor not only today, but after the fact of this frontal boundary moving through on Wednesday afternoon all the way into Thursday. So still a lot of pink and a lot of red colors right there, gusts up to about 30, 35, maybe even 40 miles an hour. That's tomorrow afternoon. And then finally, they take a step down as we go into Wednesday evening, still about 20 to 30 miles an hour gusts. And yes, once again, they are going to persist all the way into Thursday until finally Thursday overnight, we start to see them die down and we can finally get a nice and calm day in store for the end of our work week on Friday. So obviously continuing to make the focus the overnight threat into the early morning hours. But I just wanted to go ahead and preface that today, tomorrow, and Thursday are all going to be very windy days. So definitely a good time to break out the windbreaker jacket if you do have it, or maybe wear a hat if you're like me and you don't want a bad hair day. So satellite and radar continues to show our cloud cover, but now starting to see maybe a little bit of moisture move from the south up to the north. Once you get that southerly flow, it's going to usher in more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean, like I did mention. But over to our west, so this is going to be on the border of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then the northern portion of the boot of Louisiana. This is our system that it's on its way, and it's still a couple states over, but it has been impacting areas like the Dallas-Fort Worth area, areas south of Oklahoma City, all throughout this morning. And you can continue to see these big red large boxes. Those are going to be your tornado watch boxes that they have issued. That means you do have the ingredients that can support a tornado warned storm. And we have seen a couple of smaller red boxes. It's really hard to see. I wonder if I can take away some of the watch boxes right here and maybe zoom in right here. So yeah, you see just to the northwest of Shreveport, there is a tornado warning right now. So crossing the border between Texas into Louisiana. But other than that, I want you to pay attention to all of the yellow boxes that are here. If I take away the radar right here, and you can still get a pretty good image of it. We'll take away the cloud cover for good measure as well. All of these yellow boxes right here stretching from kind of northwest Arkansas all the way down the border into Texas, Louisiana, just north of Houston. Continuous line almost of severe thunderstorm warnings. That's what we're kind of anticipating could be the case as we head into these overnight hours later on. But we'll go into what specifically we are seeing as of the latest projections. Right now, we'll take it to our surface map and just give you an idea of what weather system specifically this is. This is all because of a low pressure center that is currently centered over in the western edge of Kansas, but what's draping down from it are these fronts right here. So you see this warm front out ahead, ushering in some of that warmer air where some of that severe weather is popping up. But this trailing cold front is really driving the motion of the storm system. And that's going to continue to sweep across the southern U.S. and eventually into the southeast over the next 12 to 18 hours per se. So day one and day two storm outlook. You remember if I was showing you this yesterday, I had the individual graphics. I was showing you the day two for Tuesday, and I was showing you the day three for Wednesday. And obviously it was covering some central Georgia counties. There were some areas even left out of a risk. So just for the clearest picture, I decided to combine the two because this is still going to be all within that same time frame I just told you about, that midnight hour all the way until the 9 a.m. hour. So you'll see that we have levels 1 through 5 and a level 3. So that's getting about halfway up the scale, and that's where you're typically really starting to hone down on the severe weather specifics. That's where you start to get things like maybe even tornado outbreaks. That's not here in central Georgia. That is present over to the west and encompassing a rather large area in kind of that orangish tannish color. The level 2 risk here in the yellow is going to be a little bit less confidence than that level 3, and then you go down to a level 1, which is this green shaded area. Well, if I zoom in on central Georgia, once again, this is combining the two outlooks. So for the day 2 outlook, it's going to be mainly our western half, but the day 3 outlook or excuse me, the day 1 outlook now. It was day 2 yesterday. So the day 1 outlook is further over to our western half, and then our eastern half encompassed in the level 2. Nonetheless, just think of all of central Georgia under a severe weather risk like it is outlined right here. So at least everyone in this level 1 out of 5 risk for severe weather, but newest as of this morning, this was updated at 8 a.m. This level 2, this yellow shaded area is now creeping into our southwestern counties. So this is going to include parts of Upson County down into Crawford County, Peach, Houston, over into Pulaski and Wilcox, along with the entirety of Taylor County, Macon County, Dooley County, and Crisp County. And now if we take it over to this level 2 that we did see yesterday, it was present in our southeastern corridor. That has been trimmed back just a little bit. Yesterday it was encompassing most all of Wheeler County, some areas of Lawrence into Dodge into Telfair. Well, now it's just looking like portions of those southeastern counties. The only county that looks to be completely engulfed in that level 2 is Montgomery County, and then taking it 1 county over to the east, Toombs County and Vidalia. But whether you're in this level 1 or level 2, basically if you have the level 2 as opposed to the level 1, it essentially means you have greater confidence of seeing these potential threats, these gusty winds, these strong storms. And of course, we've outlined the potential for a spin up or a brief tornado, but I'm not too high on the confidence of that, and I'll show you why in just 1 second. So the straight line winds are really going to be the potential impact with this. This is a fast moving system. Some gusts greater than 60 miles an hour can be present in a severe thunderstorm, but we know weather does not obey these boundaries that the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, does outline for us. So we're going to have to be very diligent overnight, obviously with the timing of this and keeping a close eye on that radar. So let's go through that specific timing here on Future View. This is starting out today. This afternoon, you may see a sprinkle shower or two. I'm not quite sure if I even see any of these light green dots. They get really hard to see when you have a lot of patchy cloud cover like this. Nonetheless, the real story is this frontal boundary. 1 a.m., it looks like maybe trending a little bit later than it was as of the most recent run. So around 1 a.m., it does look like maybe trending 2 a.m. This front will be approaching our western counties. So from that 2 to 3 a.m. window, we could definitely start to see that heavy rain and those gusty winds continue to move in. And this is 3 a.m. right here, starting to creep into areas like Macon up here in Bibb County, Warner Robins down to Houston County, but already encompassing areas further to the west like Taylor County, Crawford County, Upson County. Now taking it to the 5 a.m. hour, typically when our morning show does start, but obviously if we have severe thunderstorm warnings pop up or even a tornado warning, then we would obviously be on the air or on our stream on Facebook to keep you updated with that. And then we'd continue to go about our morning show, and I would be keeping you updated with the latest data that we do have in terms of any new warnings popping up, any warnings going away per se. So around 5 a.m., this continues to trek mainly to the east of Macon, east of I-75, so areas farther over to the east. We're talking Wilkinson County, Twiggs, over into Lawrence, eventually Washington County, and then our northern counties as well. That's when you're going to start to see that heaviest rain and those gustiest winds. And by 7 a.m., we're already seeing trying to exit. It's just on our eastern edge right here, these kind of dark colors, these oranges, these reds, and that will continue to push out hopefully around the time that you're used to making your way into work. So by about 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., you should be good to go. It's just going to be some gusty winds that you're definitely going to want to be careful for. And obviously, if we have trees down and power lines down, be very careful if you do encounter some of those. You're definitely going to want to find a detour and not try to drive around those whatsoever. So then we go about tomorrow afternoon. And like I've continued to tell you, the wind arrows, they're very long and very yellow, meaning they're still going to be gusty. And you're starting to see this cloud cover creep in from the northwest. This is just going to be the circulation of this system. So we're going to get that counterclockwise rotation in terms of the winds that we do have. So after that frontal boundary does pass, on the back side of it, we're going to get maybe a little bit more moisture, a few sprinkles that could usher in the later hours on Wednesday. However, I think that's mainly going to be the farther north that you do live, mainly in North Georgia are the areas that they're actually looking at seeing any wraparound precipitation. And then continuing on into Thursday, as you see, clear skies, but the winds are still gusty, and they finally don't really go down until we get into the overnight hours, so more so Thursday evening. And then finally, hopefully we can have just a calm stretch of weather, no winds, nothing in the way of potential severe weather, but Friday does look to be a little bit partly cloudy. Now, I've continued to talk to you about that wind direction coming in from the south, and obviously you see Dew point's 43 degrees. That is nowhere near really muggy like we see in the summertime, but we haven't seen any of these green shaded areas in quite a while. So we're going to continue to watch that light green color build in, and dew points only forecasted to maybe hit the 50s or the 60s, but that's going to be right ahead of this frontal boundary. And obviously you see this legend up here. It's not completely dry, but it's not super muggy. So it's in that not bad region in terms of how it feels, but there is moisture content at the surface ahead of this boundary as it will drive in. When you have a cold front, a lot of lift occurs above it. Well, what's it going to lift? It's going to lift any moisture that we have available here in central Georgia. So when you start to lift that water, it starts to produce higher cloud tops. Higher cloud tops mean your more stronger or severe thunderstorms. But the good news is, as this frontal boundary passes, you can definitely see it depicted, a very sharp gradient. There's green over here, no green over here behind it. That frontal boundary will continue to dry us out as we go throughout the second half of your Wednesday into Thursday. Maybe a chance of a sprinkle from that wraparound flow, but it doesn't look like we even get really an insertion of moisture associated with that. So now we're talking about the tornado parameter. I've been mentioning it a little bit, the possibility of a brief or a spin-up tornado. Once again, during this exact time frame, our tornado parameter is not showing any shaded areas whatsoever here in central Georgia. And this graphic is working, I promise you, because you see these very faint gray specks. That is going to be indicative of a very low tornado parameter, but we're still not seeing any of that come to fruition in central Georgia. A lot of the instability values that we do need for tornadoes to form are just not there. However, there are some that are definitely exceeded, and that's why we're continuing to see upgrades amongst the SPC watch. This is something that we're really just going to have to keep a close eye on in the real time of this actual event. Obviously, it is good news to not see any of these parameters or values that do make for a good conducive environment for rotation, for supercells. That is going to be good news. And also, to add on to that fact, the straight line winds, I'm talking 60, I'm talking 70-mile-an-hour gusts that could be possible with a very strong severe thunderstorm that can still do about the same damage as a weaker tornado would do. So as we continue about Wednesday afternoon, that parameter completely goes away. We're really just looking at that overnight to early window when anything would be present if it was. So all that summed up, our weather impact alert. I've showed this graphic all morning long. We're going to continue to show it all until this event is over. When is this going to be? So this is our wind graphic, not to get confused with WHEN. This is WIN right here. So the wind, the W right here, when is this going to be? Once again, that midnight to 9 a.m. window. I know I just showed you the models and I said this would start to creep in more around 2 a.m., but we have seen a little back and forth with what the models are saying in terms of the time. So 12 a.m., obviously, the time many of you are going to sleep, still can continue about that, but we're trying to really narrow that time frame down, obviously keeping it a little broad and a little wider at first, and then we'll definitely really get a good idea once we see consistent agreement with the models. The main impact, those gusty winds, even associated with severe thunderstorms, that is going to be the most confidence that we do have. A lot of shear is going to be present. It's a very straight line. It's a very quick moving system. So those gusty winds, whether they're rotating or not, or they're just going in a straight line, can still pose impacts. What you need to do, stay up to date with the changes, obviously, and if you watched yesterday morning, you watched this morning, you're already doing a great job of that. But also the most important thing I can tell you is have a way to receive those possible alerts. And obviously we say this with every single weather system that we have, but this time obviously all the more important because this is an overnight risk. So there are two pros and kind of one big con associated with an overnight severe weather risk. I'll go over the pros first. The pros are, number one, most of you are already in the safety of your home, which is good. Many of you are already heading down to bed and settling down for the night, especially during these overnight hours. And this goes into Wednesday morning, so many of you will already be waking up possibly, but you'll already be in the safety of your home, which is going to be a very good thing. Number two, this is the overnight threat, so conditions aren't going to be as warm as they would in the afternoon hours. So if this system were to roll around during the warmest part of the day, say we had a high of 76 like we do today, there's plenty of moisture available for a springtime system, that would definitely enhance the severe weather risk. So we are very fortunate that this will be happening during a cooler time of the day when it's dark out and we're not having as much surface heat, but still a good amount of ingredients are going to be there to produce some strong to severe thunderstorms. But the con of it is you are asleep. So obviously I was prefacing that just a little bit. If you are asleep, some of you may be very, very heavy sleepers if you're like myself whatsoever. So if you are asleep during this, you want to have a way to receive those possible alerts, not only just receiving them, but a way that's going to wake you up as well. Because if the weather is to turn severe, you'll typically normally hear your phones, maybe your weather radios, maybe our app here at 13 WMAZ, something that will wake you up. Turn that ringer on, sleep with it on overnight tonight, because if you are fast asleep, that ringer will wake you up and you will know everything that you need to know, because we'll be doing coverage all throughout the morning hours associated with this. So those are the biggest pieces of advice I can give you on obviously securing loose items that you have outside. These are going to be very gusty winds. Say you have some patio furniture that doesn't really stay put, you have some umbrellas, maybe some outdoor decorations. You definitely want to secure those or put them somewhere where the winds can't blow them around, because they could end up in one of your neighbor's yards or maybe even down the block. So that's where things do stand right now. I hope that was a pretty good idea of an in-depth breakdown. I saw a couple comments earlier associated with my post, so let's go in and let's try to answer some of those. And like I said, I tried to go as in-depth as I could with all of that. If you need a little bit of a better explanation, just shoot me a comment. I'll try to explain it a little bit better, because I was kind of trying to hit a lot of different points there, and then I'll kind of sum it up with my key messages at the end of this, the things that I definitely want you to take away, and obviously continue to watch all throughout today, midday into the evening show, 5 and 6 with Ben, and then Ben's live stream right here on 13 WMAZ Plus, once again at 9 p.m. So I have a lot of notifications. Hopefully that's a good sign. And then it looks like our digital team, Justin Baxley and Lars Lawnrith, have posted a little Facebook post as well. So I got a couple posts to look through. Just give me a little bit of time, be a little bit patient with me. One comment I did see before I got on this live stream is, how does this system, there's actually 3 parts to this question, so we'll break them all down. How does this one compare to the one we had a couple weeks ago? Well, I'll say the biggest difference that I do see with that system and this system is, number one, we're actually in a level 2 risk. Maybe some counties were in a level 2 with the last one. It did occur, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and some change on a Sunday morning. There were only a few counties maybe outlined in a level 2, less than what you see right here. So I'd say that's the biggest difference. There is a little more confidence amongst the SPC outlooks according to this round go. However, that system about 2 weeks ago, we had, I want to say, 6 tornado warnings and a continuous line of severe thunderstorms training through. That was not indicative of maybe high-end level 1. That was more so getting into high-end level 2 and low-end level 3 threat. So I do believe that one was a little bit misforecasted in terms of the level risk. That's the biggest difference I see. But also we had the wedge present. So areas farther to the north were a little bit cooler because of that wedge last time. It didn't really play much of a role, because we did see a confirmed tornado up in Butts County, just to the north of Forsyth, Juliet areas in Monroe County. So I'd say it's virtually the same in terms of what type of system it is. It's a frontal boundary driving through, and it's picking up any available energy, instability, and moisture that is ahead of it. But obviously the impacts are looking pretty similar. I definitely would say this round go, more confidence in the gusty winds being the most damaging factor, as opposed to the possible spin-up rotation that we were monitoring with the one 2 weeks ago. Walk us through the timing during your live, and of course we'll go back and revisit that. I'll show you exactly what Future View has, and once again I'll kind of tell you about that window that I do have. So 2 a.m. right here, creeping into our western counties, this most leading edge, the heaviest rain, the gustiest winds. And actually, before we do that, I do want to go ahead and go back over here. Let's take it over into Alabama. This doesn't really pertain to us necessarily, but you're seeing a lot of darker shades of red, maybe even some pink back over here. That's going to be indicative of some heavier rainfall. And when you get those pockets of heavier rainfall, more frequent lightning, some gustier winds, some stronger storms embedded within this line, we don't really see any of those dark red or even pink areas come to fruition here. We might see a little tiny area of some dark red. So it does look like there is a little bit of slight weakening, especially as it's moving into an area that is starting to cool down overnight, which that will be us. Continuing about 4 a.m. and then as we go into about 6 a.m., more so in our eastern half right here, but obviously maybe even seeing a little bit of breaking, not seeing that continuous heavy rain all throughout this line, maybe some pockets of just some light steady showers and some gusty winds. So that would be good news, obviously, right there. And then continuing to move out, I would say probably about 8 a.m. So I may track this back a little bit. My window has been midnight all the way to 9 a.m. However, I do believe, according to this model run that we do have with Future View in the graph model, timing's looking more about 2 a.m. all the way until about 8 a.m. is the real window. And obviously within that window, if you live farther to the west, then you're going to be earlier to see that heaviest band of rain and those gusty winds as opposed to areas farther to the east. So if you live farther to the east, that's areas like Dublin, maybe even a little bit into Eastman, Wrightsville, over into Sandersville, Sparta. You guys are going to be the last to see this. That's going to trail a little bit more so into the early morning hours all the way until this 8 a.m. hour. And one more part to this question. Obviously, okay, so we kind of went over this a little bit, but the dangers of this coming overnight and how we can better prepare for it. Obviously, the big point I want to hammer in, with this coming overnight, obviously many of you are going to be winding down and going to bed and getting ready for the next day of your work week. You may not be up to hear any of those severe weather alerts that you may have. So be sure to turn your ringer on and have some way to receive the possible severe weather alerts that will wake you up, especially if you are a hard sleeper. I would definitely suggest keeping your phone very close by, maybe putting it on vibrate, sleeping with it on your chest, something that will wake you up if you are to get any of the severe weather warnings. And the best thing that you can do otherwise than having or staying weather aware and making sure that you get those alerts is obviously securing any loose items that you do have outside, because there will be some very gusty winds, not only with this system, but all the way throughout the rest of the day on Wednesday, still lingering into Thursday, even already this afternoon. So anything that gets blown around really easily outside on your in your front yard or your backyard, either your side yards, you'll definitely want to put those inside or put them in a location where they can't get blown around. Go ahead and throw them in the shed or something. See a lot of you sharing all the posts that have been made. We really do appreciate that. Obviously, getting all this information out to the largest crowd that we can, that is how we know things are the most beneficial. Let's go to some of my posts real quick. Things escalated quickly for Cordial from yesterday. Yes, a little bit. We really just saw that upgrade from a level 1 to a level 2. If you remember yesterday, Cordial wasn't under any risk whatsoever, but I said treat it like everyone was under at least a level 1. So we've really just seen one category uptick from that. Just means that the confidence is a little bit higher, not to go ahead and freak everyone out, but obviously that is something that you definitely need to be more prepared for, the greater likelihood of seeing the gusty winds and some of those stronger thunderstorms. Seems like this happens a lot. You'll be in a level 1 and you'll say, that's not too bad. Then all of a sudden they'll slap a level 2 on you. Yes, exactly. So when you start to get that uptick in the severe weather risk, and especially that 1 through 5 level, obviously is something that can make you a little anxious and can make you a little bit nervous. As long as you're taking the proper precautions and you're just being smart about it, you have nothing to worry about. We'll be here giving you all the information that you do need associated with the severe weather. Just be sure that you are being smart about it. If things are to get bad, then we'll obviously up our language about it all. But right now, all you can do is just stay updated with the latest information, have those alerts ready to go, secure loose items, and you're good to go. Just make sure to tune in with us about the latest updates. So no reason to widespread panic and everything and get really nervous and really anxious. Just take a deep breath and we'll all get through this. The sun will come out later on tomorrow. All right, I think that's one of my posts. See another comment about them upping that, and it does make people a lot anxious. Guess March is roaring in like a lion. Yep, you betcha. But obviously when we get to the spring months, that's typically our severe weather season. Conditions are starting to get a little bit warmer, but there's still a little bit of cold air present. So warm and cold air mixing, that can lead to the potential for tornadoes, in which we've seen come to fruition out to the west. But we typically have these frontal boundaries trek through more frequently during the spring months as opposed to maybe the winter and maybe then into the summer months. We can still see them at all times throughout the year, but the conditions do have to be perfect. And it's all about where the jet stream is located to really send that flow or the centers of low pressure closer to us and closer to home. Okay, that is all on my post, and one more post to check out, and then I will leave you with some key messages. We have been going for about 30 minutes. I always amaze myself how long that we can talk about this, but hey, it is my Super Bowl. So, doesn't look like any comments on 13 WMAZ's post. and give you guys one more opportunity to kind of shoot a comment and just see if you have any concerns associated with this. But I basically covered just about everything I can, unless you want a whole science lecture from myself. But that's all I'm seeing. So we will leave it with these two graphics right here, because this has been the biggest change that we've seen as of the last 12 hours or so. Obviously, this risk has definitely popped up a little bit. And I want to go ahead and tell you that this is day 1 and day 2. I was using separate graphics to depict them. Well, obviously, with this being an overnight into early morning threat, then you're going to get kind of spliced up by these level risks, because some are going to think it's more so classifying as Tuesday. Some are going to think it's classifying more so as the early morning hours on Wednesday. So this gives you a better picture of everyone outlined in a risk. And as you can see, the green areas are clumped together and overlapping. So all of central Georgia under a level 1. But as of 8 a.m., we have seen this level 2 extended into our far southwestern and western counties, parts of Upson County, Crawford, Peach, Houston, down to Pulaski and Wilcox, along with the entirety of Taylor County, Macon County, Dooley, and then down to Crisp as you take it down I-75. So areas like Thomaston over into Perry, getting really close to the Warner Robins area, but Fort Valley over in Peach County, Butler, Montezuma, Unadilla, Vienna, Cordele, and then getting over close to Hawkinsville, around Abbeville and Rochelle and Wilcox County. Just means that the confidence is a little bit higher of you seeing these gusty winds and strong thunderstorms, the potential for maybe a little bit of rotation or a spin up. And along with the areas that were outlined in this level 2 yesterday, we've just seen a trimming back of that just a little bit. So parts of Johnson County, Treutlen, Wheeler, Telfair, and then Montgomery and Toombs County down in Vidalia, and over up into Soperton and Treutlen County. Now, once again, severe weather or weather in general doesn't obey these boundaries that we do give them. That's just where we're more confidently predicting or confidently forecasting some potential impacts for that. And the good news is that the main risks, that level 3, the greatest confidence of seeing a lot of severe weather, that remains to our west and our southwest. And right there you can see it crossing into the very southwest corner of Georgia. That actually extends all the way back into Mississippi, parts of Arkansas, Louisiana. So it is a very big level 3. Thankfully, we're not in that. Always can put it in perspective when things do seem very bad. So our weather impact alert, you'll continue to hear us say that. Weather impact alert this, weather impact alert that. This is just a time frame that we want you to pay very close attention to the forecast. Stay up to date with the changes. Be sure you have that way to receive possible alerts, and that will wake you up. But that main impact, gusty winds and thunderstorms, I'm thinking around possibly the 2 to 8 a.m. window if we're really trying to trim that window down. But just to be safe, we're going right now midnight to 9 a.m. And if we continue to see more agreement that this will kind of get going around the 2 a.m. hour, then we'll update this graphic as we go into this evening. And be sure to secure any loose items that you don't want blowing around in your backyards, your front yards and such. So those are the preparations that you can take all throughout today. And then you will be ready to go throughout the overnight hours tomorrow. Especially if you're just going to go to bed as normal, you may get woken up by some thunder or some bright flashes of lightning that maybe flash through your window and wake you up. Still, we'll be right with you all the way through. Myself, Ben Jones, we are going to be covering this as it comes through during the overnight hours. And then around 9 a.m., we will be very happy to give the all clear. And hopefully many of you are taking those proper precautions that we have been talking about. So I think I've rambled on long enough, about 10:32 now. Thank you guys for tuning in. And once again, just continue to stay updated with us throughout midday, our evening show at 5 and 6. Ben Jones will be back here on 13 WMAZ at 9 o'clock. So go ahead and tune into that before you're maybe heading to bed. And if things do get messy, you start to hear those alerts, we'll be right with you on 13 WMAZ through the entire thing. Thank you.